To who it may concern, here are 10 albums that raised me. Let's have a look. The first album that raised me, and it still raises me to this day, is none other than The Born This Way by Lady Gaga. And this album came out when I was 12, I believe, and I attended the Born This Way ball at 13. So to have such a feeling of belonging and safety through someone's music and concerts was really special at such a young age. And my favorite songs nowadays are Scheisse, Marry the Night, and Electric Chapel, but it always changes. So I feel like Highway Unicorn sometimes makes its way into the favorites because I feel like that song was created somewhere in another dimension because it just doesn't feel real, and people are not making songs like that anymore. So let me know which Lady Gaga song is your favorite, or from this album specifically, and has this raised you? Because surely it's raised a lot of people. Moving on to the second album on the list is none other than Ultraviolence by Lana Del Rey. I remember buying Ultraviolence and Brooklyn Baby on iTunes back in June 2014, I believe, while I was on holiday, and I was listening to them on repeat at the beach, and I remember being mesmerized by the rawness of the vocals, and I still am to this day. This album sounds like what yearning feels like, and my favorite songs are Pretty When You Cry, Old Money, and Black Beauty. To be honest, I wish the B-sides would all be released because I love Pink Champagne and Madly, and I think I Talk to Jesus, and maybe Cult Leader as well. So, has this album raised you, or are you healthy now? Let me know. Next up is another Tumblr album, and that is Electra Heart by Miss Marina and the Diamonds. I gave this album a listen for the first time in 2014, I believe, and I was mesmerized at how every single song was so beautifully crafted, and I started being in my Tumblr era, or in my emo era around that time, so this album was a huge part of my high school years, and I think my favorite songs are, to this day, Radioactive, Prima Donna, and I'm not sure if I pronounced this correctly, is either Hippocrates or Hippocrates. I never knew how to pronounce that, but this album also signifies that you are not emotionally stable to this day. The fourth album on the list is none other than Warrior by Kesha. Yes, a surprising choice. Although she kind of hates this album, or maybe not anymore, I grew up watching My Crazy Beautiful Life on MTV, and I watched the making of this album on that show. So when I heard her make Last Goodbye, I had to buy the deluxe CD, which was also super expensive to import, and I played it non-stop during that era. And my favorite songs are obviously Last Goodbye, All That Matters, and Come On. I went to the Kesha concert recently, and thank God I did, because she played a bunch of songs from this album. Yes, they were shortened, but still, it kind of healed something in me. I love this album so much. The fifth album is Taylor Swift's best album. Sorry Not Sorry, but it is Red, both versions. Fun fact, I requested the deluxe CD for Secret Santa in 2015, and in 2017 I was driving by myself blasting this album, and I broke down crying behind the wheel because of how beautiful it was. And fast forward to 2021, Red, Taylor's version, came into my life when I was in a period of yearning for that kind of autumnal love, and I wore the ring that she wears on the cover for the entire month of November to manifest that, so I was truly locked in. And it did work, so not too much on that. And I remember Starbucks was doing the Taylor's version drink, playing her songs every moment of the day, and around that time I went to my first Taylor Swift club night by myself, and that was truly cathartic in a way. And yeah, this album has been with me through a lot of heartbreak and also happy times, which is why I think it's Taylor's best album, and she probably thinks the same because I've seen her show so much love to it. My favorite songs on Red, Taylor's version, are I Almost Do, Begin Again, and maybe Come Back Be Here. So what do you think? Am I right when I say that this is Taylor's best album? Do not say Folklore, because it's not, okay? You're just stuck in that pandemic mentality, and you're a new Swiftie. I'm sorry. This is the true Taylor Swift album. It's got all sides of her. The sixth album on the list is none other than Goodbye Lullaby by Avril Lavigne. Yes, surprising choice. I was tossing between this and Under My Skin, but this has more memories attached to it. So, the way I was introduced to this album was through a bootleg CD that my mother got me from a guy who was selling CDs on the beach in Greece. And that morning, I remember I stayed in the hotel to sleep, and she came back with the CD. It was just like basically a piece of paper, the CD, and I guess some random track list. And yeah, I remember playing it on my portable DVD player non-stop that trip in 2011. And I believe it was the same trip I purchased the Born This Way CD from a supermarket. So I have really fond memories of that time. And my favorite songs are Push, For Real, and Stop Standing There. Yes, deep cuts. The seventh album on the list is Miley Cyrus and Her Dead Pets. And yes, this is a bootleg vinyl because we do not have an official pressing. So the story with this album is that summers used to be a very lonely time for me growing up because most of my friends spent theirs away at their grandparents, and I was spending them either at home or also at my grandma's, where I had one of those overground pools. And the end of summer 2015 is when this album came out, and because I was like 16, I couldn't digest it the way I do now, so I was listening to it every single time I went to sleep and when I was floating in the pool just looking at the sky. And that's how I remember this album, with such melancholic memories. Favorite songs on this album are One Sun, Space Boots, and I Get So Scared. What are yours? One Sun was my favorite song because it was sort of the only pop-y song that I could digest at the time, so I really love it to this day. The eighth album on the list is a double album, and it is Blue Lips and Ladywood by Tovlo or Tuvelu. You say the way you want to say. I like to say Tovlo. And I also have a tattoo done by Tovlo in Prague. It says Stay Raw, and that is in honor of Ladywood, obviously. When I tell you the period between 17 and 18 was so monumental for me, because I had just taken out my braces and I started a little rebrand along with my friends, and I got my driving license, and driving to this album after classes and going to the riverbank by the beach, it was so special for me. And when Blue Lips came out, I was already in my university years and living life on my own terms in London and feeling that freedom that these albums kind of instill in you. I pledge allegiance to Tovlo thanks to these two albums. And my favorite songs now are Don't Talk About It, What the Fuck Love Is, and Vibes. And then on Blue Lips we have Struggle, Disco Tits, and obviously 9th of October. The ninth album on the list is none other than Self-Titled by Dua Lipa. And yes, this is autographed. So this album came out when I was in my last year of high school, and as you know from before, those last 2 years were really formative and somewhat liberating for me. And I remember seeing Dua Lipa at a festival right after I finished my major exams, and right after she released the album, so not many people knew the songs. And I felt like I was free to enjoy life without the anxiety of school starting in the fall for the first time in my life. And I remember Lost in Your Light was constantly played on TV when I was hanging out with my bestie after classes, and Be The One gave me such a nostalgic feeling, even though it was relatively fresh at that time. And the era continued into my first year of university when I saw Dua Lipa perform New Rules and Homesick on Sounds Like Friday Night. And I believe before that I saw her show at the O2 Brixton. And to this day, my favorite songs are Be The One, Garden, and Begging. I was begging Dua Lipa to make Begging single, but she didn't do it. She was making other songs singles that had no business being singles. And finally, the 10th and last album on the list is none other than the legend herself, Addison. Yes, this album came out last year. Yes, in life we continue to grow. And yes, this is gonna raise me for decades to come. I even told Addison in person that I haven't been this enthralled with someone's artistry since Lady Gaga. And it's honestly so true. I mean, I kept switching between Diet Pepsi, Aquamarine, and Arcamarine for months, being mesmerized by the visuals, the thought process, the lyrics, the sounds. It was so incredible. And then constantly high fashion, then constantly headphones on, until I eventually manifested to meet her at Rough Trade, and I saw her live at the Box in Soho for her second show ever. Then I saw her opening for Lana twice, and then twice on tour with Meet and Greet. So you know I am an Addison stan the house down, and I told her it feels like I'm meeting Michael Jackson, and it is true to me. So yeah, my favorite songs are High Fashion, Duh, In the Rain, and Times Like These, even though they keep changing. So what do you think of my list? Are any of these albums on your list of albums that raised you? If not, then let me know which albums raised you. And I feel like I should have added Melodrama. I have the deluxe vinyl here, period, but I don't think it raised me the way these albums have. And I'm not saying these are my absolute favorite albums in the world forever, but I have fond memories of all of these. So kisses, thank you for watching if you made it this far.